Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Board of Aldermen meeting. Today is Monday, January 9th. Welcome to the January meeting of the Milford Board of Aldermen. Please join me as we salute our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, will you please?
Alderman Archiola.
Present.
Alderman Beatty.
Present.
Alderman Broster.
Present.
Alderman Casey.
Here.
Alderman Gurman.
Madam Secretary, Alderman Gurman would like to be excused.
Thank you. Alderman Gennatasio.
Here.
Alderman Harlow. Here. Alderman Marlowe. Here. Alderman Moffett.
Here.
Alderman Morenin.
Here.
Alderman Pacelli.
Here.
Alderman Parente.
Here.
Alderman Vitro. Here. Alderman Vitale. Here. Alderman Willis.
Here.
14 are present.
14 present. Thank you, Madam Secretary. We do have a quorum. The next portion of the meeting is devoted to public comment. Statements are strictly limited to the legislative function of the Board of Aldermen. Please use every effort to limit public speaking to the permissible business of the Board of Aldermen. The time limit granted to each speaker shall be 3 minutes. Residents, taxpayers, and electors may address the board at this time. The board encourages speakers not to express derogatory, insensitive, or offensive statements or to engage in personal attacks against individuals. In order to allow everyone an opportunity to speak, I'd ask that everyone please limit their comments to 3 minutes. Anyone wishing to address the board can do so at this time. When you come up to the podium, please state your name and your address for the record. Thank you.
Jeannie Cavallero, 109 Siemens Lane, Unit 25. It's nice to see everyone. I hope you all have a Happy New Year. Again, I am back about the condominium refuge rebate. I've spoken to several people that are on this board right now, and I have gotten some positive responses. I did send out an email. Justin helped me send it out to, I believe at least the Ordinance Committee got it, in reference to possible options on how to amend the ordinance for the trash rebate. I think the best one out of all of them is probably some kind of cost of living percentage over several years to bring it where it should be, that is equivalent to a single-family dwelling. That's really what would be the most fair outcome, but anything that the Aldermanic Board can consider would be greatly appreciated. Our cost for trash rebate goes up substantially every month. It's not the actual contract that changes, it's the fuel costs that we get hit. And as you know, our fuel costs are high in Connecticut. So any help that you can give the condominiums would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board can do so at this time. Seeing none, Alderman Harlow, agenda item number 3, consideration of minutes for the regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen.
Agenda item number 3, minutes for the regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen held on December 5th, 2022.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Alderman Harlow, agenda item number B. Sorry. Agenda 8F.
You want to do agenda 5?
Chairman's report. I'm very sorry about that. Chairman's report, I'd just like to wish the board a Happy New Year, and the residents of Milford also a Happy New Year. And I hope that this year we can keep everybody working together to make the city of Milford even a better place to live and to work and to play. Agenda item number 6, Mayor's report. Mr. Mayor.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I too would like to wish everybody a very happy new year. Hope everyone is off to a productive and healthy start to 2023. This evening we have a moderate agenda. We have items 8A through 8F, and I would respectfully request your consideration and action on those items. Happy to answer those as they come up. And of course, we have appointments. We have appointments and reappointments to our various boards and commissions in town. Each January, we induct a new class or reappoint a new group of folks to help run our city. Milford has a very strong spirit of volunteerism. It's what keeps our community so strong. And the people in the auditorium tonight are part of the reason why Milford has been so successful. They have stepped up. They have volunteered to give of their time, their energy, their expertise to make Milford an even better place to live, work, and play, Mr. Chairman. And I ask that you call them up at the appropriate time, and if they are so lucky to be affirmed by your board, to affirm them. So that will be under item 8A and 8F. Under item 6A, I do have mayor appointments for certain boards and commissions, and I will announce those now. But again, if those folks that I announced the names, if you could just hold tight and wait a few more moments, the chair will call you up at the appropriate time to get sworn in by our honorable city clerk. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'd like to read those names for the boards and commissions under mayor's appointment, which are Council on Aging. It's a 2-year term for Lillian Holmes, Gloria Lana, Phil Caparuso, and Linda Stevenson. And for a term expiring 12/31/2023, a new appointment, Stephen Barris. Under the Conservation Commission, a reappointment, Howard Haberman. Inland Wetlands, Stephen Munson. Milford Department of Human Services, Barbara Genovese. Veteran Graves Preservation Commission, Tom Cody Jr., David DeRubis, and Patrick Tokars. So folks, again, at the appropriate time, if you could hold tight and wait for the chair to announce your names, to announce the swearing in for each of you. But again, I'd like to thank everybody for their willingness to serve the city. Many thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this point, I will entertain a motion to reorder the agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Chairman, generally we do that after 8A. It doesn't matter. You could move 8F at the beginning too.
Alderman Harla, agenda item 9A, number 8A.
Item 8A, new business. The Board of Aldermen approval is hereby requested for the following mayor's appointments to the board and commissions. Board of Assessment Review, alternate 1-year term expiring December 31st, 2023, Luke Porto and Richard Vielzo. Building Code Board of Appeals, 5-year term expiring December 31st, 2027, Richard Jago. Civil Service Commission, 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025, James Hasselkamp. Board of Finance, 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025, Brian Lima and Raymond Arnold. Fire Commission, 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025. Richard W. Smith, Thomas Rizzo Jr. Golf Course Commission, 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025. Nick Vaccarelli Jr. and George J. Amato Jr. Harbor Management Commission, 5-year term expiring December 31st, 2027. Joseph Gilbert. Alternates, 2-year term expiring December 31st, 2024. Dor Kubik and Ray Kirkmeyer. Board of Health, 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025. Christine Ganillo and Dr. Mitch Whitner. Historic Preservation Commission, 5-year term expiring December 31st, 2027. John Krantz. Library Board, 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025. Tony Zabinski, Amanda Kemp, and Louise Ucharek. Park, Beach, and Recreation Commission, 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025. Kerry Rowland. Police Commission, 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025. John Major, Richard Smith, and Sharon Marone. Sewer Commission, 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025. Bradford Hubler, Alexander Armstrong. Tree Commission, 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025. Brian Mancini and Cheryl Capaelli. Zoning Board of Appeals, 5-year term expiring December 31st, 2027. William Soda. Alternate with a 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025. Carmela Hirsch.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Excuse me. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. At this point, I will entertain a motion to reorder the agenda to move item 8F next on our agenda so that we can vote on all our board and commission appointments before we move on to the other city business. Is there a motion to reorder the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Agenda item number 8B, Alderman Harla.
Agenda item number 8B, appointments. Animal Shelter Commission. Anna Arqueta, 5-year term expiring December 31st, 2027. Economic Development Commission. Michael Lynch, 3-year term expiring December 31st, 2025. Peter Cozzolino, 4-year term expiring December 31st, 2026. John DePalma, 4-year term expiring December 31st, 2026. And Julie Arcarez, 4-year term expiring December 31st, 2026. Flood and Erosion Control Board, Andrew Beklavava, 5-year term expiring December 31st, 2027. Historic District Commission, Catherine Lutz, 5-year term to expire January 1st, 2027. Robert Bertram, term to expire January 1st, 2028. Historic District, South of the Green, Maria Henley, term to expire January 1st, 2028. Alternate, Douglas Jones, term to expire January 1st, 2027. Inland Wetlands Agency, Lisa Ann Tyron, term to expire December 31st, 2025. Milford Government Access Television, Kara Flannery, term to expire December 31st, 2024. Pension and Retirement Board, Mary Rose Palumbo, term to expire December 31st, 2025. Leo Mahoney, same term to expire December 31st, 2025. And Ann Mayer, as well as Greg Tweedy, terms to expire December 31st, 2025. Alternate, same expiration, Michael R. Dooling.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. At this point, all the newly appointed members of the commission can come up so you get sworn in by our city clerk.
Do you want us on the floor? I do. Thanks, Karen. Wait, we don't get any prizes? Oh,
Just one more minute. There's a sign-up sheet on the desk in the lobby. If you remember, please, just put your signature so I know that you were here. It's in alphabetical order too, so it's in there, so thank you very much.
thanks, Karen.
How are you?
We're good?
Alderman Harla, agenda item 8B.
Agenda item 8B, the Board of Aldermen approval is requested for the attached resolution, State of Connecticut Small Town Economic Assistance Program, STEEP, Simon Lake Roof Replacement, to authorize the mayor, Public Works Director, and Finance Director to take all steps necessary, including signing all documents to effectuate said program.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Alderman Giannatasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mayor Blake. Mayor Blake, can you give us the estimated cost of this project, the total cost of the roof?
Mr. Chairman, through you, as part of the grant application for the STEEP award, STEEP stands for Small Town Economic Assistance Program. We had to include some estimates. The estimates that we procured came in a little less than $700,000. I think it was $680,000. So the majority of this will be funded through the STEEP grant. The remainder of it, we will likely put through bonding next month for the additional approximate $200,000, unless Peter has other thoughts about how to fund the project. But By approving this, this allows the city to accept the $500,000 grant that the state is giving us under STEEP.
And just to follow up, so are we gonna pay upfront the $500,000? Or we're gonna wait to receive the $500,000 before we begin?
So this is a reimbursable grant, I believe, because we have to provide a cash advance, and when the project is complete, we get the reimbursement as invoices are submitted.
So if the roof, Mayor Blake, if the roof came in at $500,000 or under, would we still have to do a match?
I don't believe so, no. We get $500,000 if the roof comes in at $499. We would not have a local match.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Casey.
To you, Mr. Mayor, currently this Simon Lake is being used for the police and Boys and Girls Club. I heard that Boys and Girls Club may soon be moving to across the street. Do you have any future plans of what's becoming of the space has been vacated by the Boys and Girls Club?
So the building, as you just mentioned, is used by really three entities. It's still used by the Board of Education. It's used by the Boys and Girls Club towards the pod area for their elementary. And it's also used by the police department primarily for hosting its academy and for hosting other tactical training. We've had discussions. In fact, I had a discussion within the last month with the superintendent and chief operations officer about future use of that building. It will likely expand more into the Board of Education use, or at this point, the vision is more into the Board of Education use and more into the police department. But we don't have an exact, again, we don't know exactly when they're going to make the transition from West Shore Rec and Simon Lake over across the street to the new facility on Tudor Road. It still has to be built, so we have some time to plan and strategize. But that's the thought. In any case, it's a public asset. It needs a new roof. It's on our capital improvement plan, as you see in the back of the agenda, and it has been. And luckily, we get a state grant to fund the majority of the project, or the hope is that it will fund the majority of the project. Hopefully, the estimates, which we just got recently within the last 6 months, should still be good.
Thank you.
Any more discussion? Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor Blake, what's the time frame once this is approved that this project would be scheduled and the roof would be replaced? Would it be the springtime?
That's the hope.
Thank you.
Any other? Seeing none? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Harla, agenda item 8C.
Agenda item 8C, the Board of Aldermen approval is requested for the attached resolution regarding cash advance for the State of Connecticut Small Town Economic Assistance Program for the Simon Lake roof replacement.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Harla, agenda item 8D.
Agenda item 8D, the Board of Aldermen approval is requested for this attached City of Milford Community Rating System, CRS, PPI program for public information and annual progress report on implementation of credited plan, and to authorize the mayor, open space manager, floodplain administrator, and inland wetland agent to take all steps necessary, including the signing of all documents, to effectuate said program.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Alderman Giannatasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mayor Blake. Mayor Blake, who actually prepares this report on a yearly basis? Would it be the open space manager primarily?
I believe it's the Hazard Mitigation Committee. Mary Rose Palumbo is one of the point people for that committee. But there are several folks on that committee, including our Director of Permanent Land Use, who's also our floodplain manager, and several other folks in this room actually tonight. But Mary Rose Palumbo really is one of the point people on that committee.
Well, I'd like to extend my thanks to you, Mary Rose, and all the hard work that you put into this. I know through the past few years, we've done a lot of storm resiliency projects, and I'm sure those come into account with this report as far as updating it, and thank you.
Any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Harla, agenda item 8D.
Agenda item 8E, the Board of Aldermen approval is requested per the attached recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board dated December 31st, 2022 for the acceptance of the capital improvement plan for the years 2022 to 2027.
Second the motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Alderman Harla.
Marlowe?
Marlo.
That's okay. I guess through you, Mr. Chair, to the mayor. Mayor, just some general questions more than anything else. I know this is not exact anything here that, you know, it's going to go this, and this, but it's you've identified through the different departments the needs that the city has. And I guess a couple things. If you could just help me a little bit with the pay-as-you-go part of this. In past budgets or capital improvement plans, I see a lot more in that area, but this time I only see that one that I guess it's in 2023, and I was just wondering what the difference is in those.
So, a lot of times, absent clairvoyance, we don't know where we're going to get the money from, whether it's through pay-as-you-go or through a grant. The exception to that is for the school construction projects, because we know there is a reimbursable program that pays at this point for Milford under the funding formula about 37.5%. For other grants, so for example, in this budget, in this capital improvement plan, we have that the roof at Simon Lake that we just acted upon for a grant was going to be paid through local funding, because we don't know. We put a robust capital improvement plan out there. The hope is that the majority of the projects are going to be funded by grants or non-local money, but unless we actually have something in the pipeline, we just don't know about that yet. So we oftentimes don't put it under the pay-as-you-go line item, or we don't put it under the grants, just because we don't know. In this case, the majority of the Simon Lake roof project is being funded through a grant. The pay-as-you-go generally, they're for smaller projects. Most of the time, projects that departments can fund out of their operational budget. There's not a hard, fast amount. And again, it depends on what type of funding departments have. But generally, smaller projects that are $50,000, less than $100,000 in nature, can be funded on a pay-as-you-go basis. Larger capital projects usually are bonded, or they're funded through a combination of bonds and grants. Again, it's a little bit different for each of them. Sometimes there's some other funding mechanisms that are brought before your board, but traditionally the pay-as-you-go are projects that are funded out of operational expenses. Most of the projects that we've listed here are part of our wish list. As you know, there's the Build Back Better program that Congress funded a little over a year ago. They're still working through some of the administrative guidelines in order to roll it out for local projects, for states and for cities. We are still putting together those projects that we're hopeful that Build Back Better will fund. That's why our capital improvement plan has so many projects in the hopes that some projects which we can't fund locally, or we would prefer not to have to fund locally, are funded through some type of state or federal grant program. We put more projects in there than we can fund locally because there's always the hope that one of the projects in the capital improvement program is narrowly tailored to fit that exact grant match. And that's why we have so many projects in here, even projects that we think we may not have the local funds to handle.
Thank you. If I could just ask another question, Mr. Chairman, through you again to the mayor, is like you were saying, there's so many projects here. How ultimately, with the money that is bonded or however the grants, do you decide which project gets done and which doesn't? Is it purely, hey, it's a public safety thing and that needs to get done, so we have to do that? Or is there some formula you use to decide which one gets the priority?
Well, I meet with our finance director to see what it would do to our debt service and how much it would impact budgeting. But then I meet with department heads. Again, approximately a third to half, probably half of the projects are school related. And I meet with our superintendent and COO of the school system. I've done that twice in the last couple of weeks, and in fact, today I've had an additional discussion about that with our school system in terms of the prioritization of projects for the schools, taking into account the capital improvement plan. I also talked to our department heads, including today I talked to our wastewater treatment director and also our sewer folks. So taking into account a lot of different discussions about what the needs of the city are, that's how I make the recommendations to the Board of Finance and your board.
Thank you. And just one last question, Mr. Chairman, again to the mayor, is just when I've looked through the past, capital improvement plans, I see that a project may no longer be there. Does that automatically mean it's been completed, or is that like, hey, it's no longer determined that that needs to be done? Could we, at some point, I guess maybe I'm beating around the bush here, get a list of the projects that have been completed?
Sure.
Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the mayor. I guess what you had just indicated about the Board of Education and meeting with them is a good segue into my annual discussion on what we do with buildings. We see HVAC replacement, miscellaneous improvements. We see air conditioning units put in. We see partial roof replacement. We see asbestos removal. We're dealing with a $15 million project at Pumpkin Delight, Fannie Beach, Pumpkin Delight. When do we decide that we cut our losses and stop putting all these Band-Aids on buildings and basically do a needs assessment, maybe redistricting, maybe we don't need so many buildings, maybe we build a new building? Where does that initiate that conversation? Is that a conversation that is initiated by you to the Board of Education to wake up and maybe we need to build a new building? Are they the ones that come to you to say, hey, we need a new building? I don't know you to say, hey, we need a new building. I don't know where and when we start talking about these. These buildings are 60 plus years old. 60 plus years old. And we're still putting Band-Aids on them. We're still remediating asbestos in these buildings. We're still continually putting roofs on these buildings. And somehow, some way, that mortar and brick is going to start falling apart. So when does this discussion come to the foreground and say that we need to look at building some new buildings? I guess that's the question.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if that was a hypothetical question, but through you to Alderman Vitale, the Board of Education is having a meeting tonight where they're presenting their budget. I do know that Mr. Rich Tully had planned to be at both meetings and may better be able to answer that question than I could, but I can tell you this. A few years back, we had a realignment committee commission where they took a look wholesale at all 14 of our schools to see if we should consolidate schools. Ultimately, the recommendation was to stay the course. There was a lot of time and effort that went into that, many meetings, a lot of expertise on that commission, and there was parent involvement, there were teacher involvement, there was citizen involvement, and it was a long process. In terms of what we do on an annual basis, each and every year, the administration of the Milford Public Schools evaluates the facilities, all 14 schools and all other assets that they have. They prioritize the needs to get done. They then make their recommendations to the Board of Education. The Board of Education approves those recommendations and forwards those recommendations to my office. My office then includes or incorporates their thoughts into the capital improvement plan, which then gets presented to the Planning and Zoning Board and ultimately your board for consideration and adoption. It is a cumbersome process, but it's an important process because it requires that all the stakeholders involved with municipal government, or the majority of the stakeholders involved with municipal government, are constantly thinking about how best to maintain and improve our schools. I can tell you this, we have put, as you said, a lot of money into our facilities over the last many years and decades. Milford schools are exceptional. The facilities that we have are excellent. I know that the buildings are old, but the amount of work that, as you know, you sit on the school construction committee, and that school construction committee does a lot of work to make sure that those schools that need attention are attended to. I go around the state, 9, 10, 11 different schools probably a weekend, going from different basketball gyms to different basketball gyms for my 3 kids who have basketball tournaments, at various elementary, middle, and high schools in towns all over Connecticut. And I would put Milford schools up against any of those, especially the ones in Fairfield County. The New Canaans and the Ridgefields and some of those schools that I've been to over the last couple of months and the last couple of years. Milford Public Schools, our facilities from walking around those are really second to none. We do have really good school facilities that we continue to maintain, and it's a reflection of the commitment of this board, the commitment of the Board of Education, who choose to fund those additions and those facility upgrades. I don't know if I answered it again. Mr. Riccitelli may be coming later in this meeting. He had to, again, address some of the issues that were before the Board of Education meeting earlier.
I kind of agree with you as far as the buildings and where they're at, but sometimes common sense needs to be brought into this. I mean, if you look at enrollment in some of these schools with 200 kids at one point in time, it served 300, 400, 500 kids. Some of those 200 populated schools served 500, 600, 700 kids. 500, 600, 700 kids. 19 elementary schools at one point in time, 3 high schools at one point in time. The point is that, it's time to look at these buildings. And do we have great buildings? Sure, because we put so much money into them. But there's a point in time that there needs to be new buildings. I mean, if we had new buildings, maybe those Band-Aids we wouldn't have to put them on until another 10, 15 years down the road. It's good common sense. I think it's good budgeting. I think I think the conversation needs to be happening. We don't even hear it happening. It's like a bad word to say, oh, we need new construction, or it's a bad word to say we're spending millions of dollars for kids in schools that are populated by 200 kids, 225. We're putting a $15 million addition on a school that has 225 kids in it. So that's what I'm saying. Realignment, redistricting doesn't last forever. People move within the districts. People move, populations go in and out. And we have to look at it realistically as to what we need to do and how many schools we actually need. And I don't know where that conversation starts, but I think it has to start somewhere. And if the Board of Education doesn't want to begin that conversation, I think then it's this side of the street that needs to start that conversation as far as new buildings are concerned. So that's my concern. It probably will always be my concern because I've evolved with the school system with 14,000 kids into it, and we're down to 5,200 kids into it. 21 schools in this district, we're down to 15. 8 elementary, 3 and 2. So, you know, we've closed schools down. We've redistricted many times, but that doesn't mean it lasts forever. There's got to be a new mindset as to what we need to do with education and how we provide these buildings to our kids. Thank you.
Alderman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the mayor, I'm trying to library elevator upgrades. I read on a patch recently that the elevator in the library has been out for like a few months. So I guess my question is, like, what's your understanding of what is it happening, why is it happening, and how soon can we get a usable elevator in there? Because that's kind of like important because disabled people have to go around, I guess, and so that's a critical issue, I think, for people.
I agree with you. It has taken too long. The project is already underway for a brand-new elevator. It's funded through CDBG. As you know, the city gets approximately $500,000 a year for which we can use to fund projects for low to moderate income folks, or there's other carve-outs. One of those carve-outs is accessibility, ADA accessibility within our city. City buildings, elevator falls right into that appropriate category. The issue is that the funding was not available till October 1st, 2022. So the project is already underway. In the meantime, we've tried to fix the existing elevator, the old elevator, numerous times. Because it is at a useful life, the elevator it's more difficult to get parts, and with some of the supply chain issues, that's why you've heard a lot of feedback, and we've heard a lot of feedback because it's an older elevator with parts that just aren't coming as quickly as they should be. But hopefully that will be an issue of the past, because there is a project underway right now that we're moving forward with a brand new elevator, already been funded, already been green-lighted, and Sheila Dravis of Community Development is the point person for that project.
So just follow up, can you have a timeline when it's going to be completed?
I can get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Any more discussion on the motion? Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, Mayor Blake, what determines whether, because you mentioned general maintenance, some things come out of the general maintenance account. What determines what general maintenance is when it needs to be addressed as far as a project or a repair versus going on to the capital improvement plan? What determines the difference?
So there are financial thresholds, and Peter could probably tell you what is considered a capital project. Peter, what is the dollar threshold for where it constitutes a capital project?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the board, I believe it's $5,000 is the minimum.
So obviously the majority of the repairs and maintenance that we do to the city infrastructure is more than $5,000, but that's what allows us to put it on the capital improvement plan. That's the minimum threshold. And I would say that each year we ask for a list from our various departments as to what the capital needs are, and they provide us a list. I think the question you have is how do we make the determination whether to fund it through bonding or through part of the operational budget. And we always would hope to fund what we can out of the operational budget. For big ticket items, we just can't accomplish that. But it's different for each project because some departments, some items we can find funding. Here's an example. We may have a pump system in wastewater that costs $800,000. That may be something that if it was an $800,000 request for some other city capital project, we would have to bond it. However, wastewater has its own reserve fund for capital projects. So we're able to fund that big ticket item out of the operational budget, out of that reserve account. Whereas if there was an $800,000 pump for our highway department, we would probably either have to bond it or get some type of grant for it.
Just to follow up, Mr. Chairman, through you. My concern is, looking through this capital improvement plan, there's some low-cost projects. For instance, Stern Hall is in need of exterior remediation and painting. It says right here, painting of the entire building needs to be done immediately because the clapboard is failing and it needs to be remediated. This is a lead paint issue. This has a $50,000 project cost. My opinion, this shouldn't even be on the capital improvement plan. If you're waiting for a bond or a grant to do this, then you're not mitigating our risk, because to me, this is a public health issue. This should be done immediately. The other one, Alderman Casey mentioned, the elevator in the library, it says it's nearly unserviceable. Like you mentioned, supply chain issues, getting parts. It says point blank that you can't even service it. That's how bad it is. And that's $150,000. That should have been done long ago. The other thing that stands out is our parks, okay? Welch's Point, you have the resurfacing of a playground where children are playing. It says that it's ripped and it's showing signs of overuse. To keep the ground safe for children, it needs to be repaired. This is a risk. This is a risk to our kids that go out to these parks and play. And this happens to be $300,000. So we're not even at what you brought to the table as an example of $800,000. This is $300,000. I don't know what we're waiting for. I know that we already bond money for asphalt and repaving. This should be done. This should be an action item. We have a public safety issue. We have at the Tri-Beach Community Center, there's no cameras, and it says the building is heavily used by multiple parties with no staffing. No staffing. So just imagine what's going on there, and there's no cameras. Now, if there's an incident there, we're at risk. We're not even monitoring it. And this is a $15,000 line item. So I don't know what you're waiting for. And there's other things that clearly says that, you know, we have boilers after boilers. We have a roof that's rusted. They said if you seal it now, it'll prolong the life. $25,000. I mean, do we really need to be like putting this on the capital improvement plan? Shouldn't this just be like an automatic, let's get the roof sealed before we have to replace it? I mean, that's just common sense. I mean, I can go on, and there's shingles that are failing, you know, on our senior center that are in constant need of repairs. Flooring is delaminating from subfloor and needs replacement. The HVAC system no longer is available and it's obsolete. I mean, this is a great report. I mean, and it's $280,000. So once again, what are we waiting for? I mean, you know, I know that you like to spend money on special projects like the convention center. You gave us a pamphlet, a handout. You still really didn't address the issue as far as the specific dollar amount that's been spent there. And it's not that I'm against that, but I feel like, you know, looking through this capital improvement plan, based on the things that I just mentioned, and there's more, you know, these things need to be addressed first and foremost before any other special amenity. These are necessities. Thank you.
Any more discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Harlow. Agenda item number 9. I'm sorry, there is no new business under agenda item number 9. Number 10, there are no budget memo transfers. Moving on to refunds, Alderman Harlow, sorry. Agenda item number 11A.
Number 11.
Yes, sir.
Refunds list. In consideration of refunds in the amount of $17,886.04.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Agenda item number 12, moving on to reports of standing committees. Is there any reports of standing committees? Alderman Parente.
The Ordinance Committee met earlier this evening, and we voted to forward the following ordinance to the full board for discussion and for a vote. It's Ordinance 12A-1, an ordinance amending an ordinance establishing compensation of city officials and employees in the service of the city of Milford.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Alderman Marlowe.
I was able to sit in the audience for the ordinance committee meeting, so a lot of the questions that I had were answered. I guess there's not a question so much of if the position or if the work that's being done is needed or is justified. I guess it's just more of a funding issue, right? Is my understanding of this. And maybe, Mr. Chairman, through you to Alderman Parente, I guess I'm asking you, is that what really we're voting on, is more the funding of this, of where the funding for this will come from?
Through you, Chairman, I also think we could defer to the mayor or the city attorney around this. I believe, from my understanding, that this was something that had inadvertently been left off when we did a cluster of ordinances last month, and so we were just making sure, because it's an ARPA-funded position, that we went through the proper procedural mechanism to essentially to effectuate it. So I don't know if the city attorney might want to comment.
Mr. Chair, through you, through Alderman Parente to Alderman Marlowe. So just by way of background, so this is currently this community health coordinator position the work has been done by an individual who's been paid through the miscellaneous professional line item. There has been discussion emanating from the ARPA committee to fund that position as a full-time position, which would help both with our grant compliance, showing what we did, and there's a need. In December of 2021, there were several ARPA positions that were approved in the same mechanism that this board is being asked to approve tonight. That was the same night that the board approved the MSA union contract. So the ordinance for those grant positions followed the MSA. Arguably, maybe this position could have followed that. It did not. We included it with the MEA, which in November of '22, this board approved the MEA union contract. And it also approved in the schedule, Article A1, Schedule B, several grant positions. Not necessarily ARPA grants, but grants. But with the same qualification, meaning that the position, you won't see it in your budget book. You will see it in an ordinance. If the grant goes away, the position goes away. But, as many of you know, grants are easy to get, but they're very technical in their compliance. So the awarding authorities will say, how did you spend our money? And if it's spent on employees, they're going to go, what do you have? And we can show them our ordinances. And this is how we paid them. So that's what this position was. Unfortunately, in November, my office, who drafted the ordinance at the request of the mayor's office, inadvertently left this position off. So in your packet, it comes across as one position, but really it was part of several that were either ARPA grant funds or other grants funds. So yes, to distill it down to its most simple, it's a matter of funding, but it does change a position from a contract employee, it's very technical, but a contractor to an employee of the city who will then be eligible for benefits. Now, it's not something that you'll be burdened with if the grant expires. That person will have decisions to make in terms of returning back to the miscellaneous professional fees, but everybody has their eyes wide open in terms of this employee knows that their job is funded by this grant. When the grant goes away, the position goes away, not necessarily the need, but the position of where it's grant funded.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask Attorney Bertram another question. Is it a requirement of the ARPA funding that it has to be a position that, is instead of a contracted position, that it's an employee position? Could the ARPA funding just fund the person as a contractor still?
Mr. Chair, through you to Alderman Marlowe, I actually don't have the answer to that. This came out of the ARPA committee. I don't know if it's a requirement of it or some other consideration made for the person that was performing it. I know that as a department head with a miscellaneous professional fee line item, to exhaust that line item on one particular contractor probably is taxing to the director, and she could find other means to use that money as opposed to just this one position. So there is a reprieve by the ARPA, but I can't answer in the affirmative or negative as to your question. I don't, but I would hazard to guess that no, it's not a requirement.
Okay, and I'm not, and by no means against the work that's being done or the position. I was just looking at the funding and saying if it was continued as a contract position, then the benefits wouldn't be involved in that, correct?
Well, keep in mind, in terms of when you get to full-time position, meaning 37 hours, we would have labor issues, department labor issues if we didn't offer benefits. The grant itself funds the benefits. So the city is reimbursed through the grant for the benefits.
All right, thank you.
Alderman Vitale.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. To Attorney Bertram or to Director Deepa. This individual who's contracting on a contractual basis, will he or she be starting at 0 step? It says 0 step here. 1 step? Is it negotiable or what?
I'll defer to Director Joseph in terms of
because it does say it's a new position. So does a new position, is that a negotiable step? Or does that mean that this position will be equal to or pay more than that individual's making now?
Sorry. Good evening, everyone. So the way that it was approved through the ARPA committee, it was for a specific amount that is the equivalent of what's listed as Under the 7/1/2022, what was budgeted in ARPA was the step 3 amount for 7/1.
So this individual will be starting at step 3, which was negotiated, and you're saying the committee, ARPA committee made it that way?
No, I'm saying, one, it was not negotiated with anybody. So there is a person who is currently working in this position as a contractor. As many of you may be aware, typically contractors are paid at a higher rate than a full-time employee because of the way the tax situations work out. So when the Health Department put in a proposal to the ARPA committee for the approval of this position to go full-time, the amount that we used to calculate what would be the full-time salary was proposed. We weren't looking at it as steps when I proposed it. It was simply one position that was going to be for the time period of the ARPA funding for 2 years, and it was at that step 3 rate, which was less than what the contractor is currently making from an hourly perspective. The hourly rate for the full-time position was less than the hourly rate that this person makes as a contractor right now. But it was in line with other positions at the Health Department that do similar work.
I can understand that, and the point would be, so is this $83,000 a little bit more than what they were making as a contractor? What was that position paying as a contractor? What did, up to date, to this date?
Hourly, the position was making 45, I believe, per hour, and the hours per week vary. So that's the benefit from a work perspective and getting the work done is that this person will be there 37 and a half hours a week until the ARPA funding is done, versus when they're working as a contractor, it is specifically project dependent.
Do you know how much that person made up to this date?
I don't have that number with me.
Because the miscellaneous professional fees, there was only 27.5 in that line item. So obviously they made more than $27,000.
Correct, because this position, the miscellaneous professional fees, while there are miscellaneous professional fees that are allocated in the city budget line item, and it's not the full 27.5, there are also grant funds that we receive from the State Department of Public Health that we fund this person's projects through. So our opioid grant, our Putting on Air's asthma grant. So there are a number of, and then also some COVID grants are what enabled us to do the COVID work. So it's been like a piecemeal.
Other grants were supplementing the total
Correct.
amount of money that this individual is making.
Correct.
So right now, all those other grants will be out of the way, and ARPA will be solely funding this position?
No, it will be a combination.
Still a combination?
It's still a combination because we still need all of that work to be done, plus the work that ARPA requires us to do relative to COVID-19 and other emerging infectious diseases.
Okay.
So the amount, I'll include the amount that was approved by the ARPA committee does not fully fund this. It is a combination of the existing grants that we have that the State Department of Public Health has committed to us, along with the ARPA funding that was approved by the committee.
So making it simple and understanding that the 83 plus is not just ARPA funds.
Correct.
You just are given, do you know what portion of it is ARPA?
ARPA is approximately 50%.
50%?
Mm-hmm. And the rest is, the other 50% is a multitude of grants.
A variety of grants. So it's 50% of the 83. And as it goes up, it increases, obviously, it'll be 50% of that,
Correct.
those steps that would be involved with?
Correct.
Thank you.
Alderman Giannattasio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Deepa. Hi, Deepa. Thank you for taking all of our questions. So, I guess the ARPA funds is what's enabling this position to go from part-time to full-time.
That is the point
That's
of the request.
right. And that came from the ARPA committee. In our packet, we didn't see any recommendation from the ARPA committee. You know, I don't know how do they vote? Is there minutes? We haven't had the purview to see what type of discussion went on at that committee level. However, once again, I am in favor of it. My concern is when the ARPA funds expire, and you indicated that it's probably going to go back to a part-time position and would be funded once again with a combination of the professional services, which is a line item in your budget. So if we backed out the professional services, you said that you already proposed your budget that is coming before us, which included the professional services that included this position. I guess to have a real cost savings to the taxpayer, if we backed out a portion of your professional services, you know, through an amendment during the budget cycle, because ARPA is picking up the additional 50% now, and it's not coming from taxpayer money, then you would be in agreement with that?
I will put a caveat on that. So I really need to stress here, the work that is being done through this position is really critical to the public health needs of this community. And again, as you've heard me say, it's not just COVID, it's not just emerging infectious diseases, it's opioids, it's asthma, it's healthy homes, it's as a health department, our accreditation process. So it spans a variety of what we do. So if there were to be a decrease in the miscellaneous professional fees line item on the city side for the next 2 years, I could understand that. However, we will need that back when ARPA goes away, because the work that existed pre-pandemic still needs to be done. And, you know, I would venture to also say this position, while many of you are familiar with our environmental health staff that do all of the enforcement, the inspections, all of that, this position of community health coordinator is the one that really interfaces with the general public. It's the one that when someone in this community has a communicable disease, whether that's foodborne illness and salmonella, whether that's tuberculosis, or whether it's COVID-19 or Ebola, this is the position that is making that phone call to that resident to say, here's what you need to do, here's how you access treatment, here's how you access testing, can I link you to primary care services? So the work of this position, I wouldn't agree to that, the funding disappearing after ARPA. We're going to need it from somewhere 2 years down the line as well, because it is my belief that emerging infectious diseases are clearly not going away, unfortunately.
And I would agree, and I appreciate you defending the position. And once again, I am in favor of the position. However, I'm just looking at it from a fiscal perspective, and you are going to get the funding that you need in the present for the next 2 years once this body votes in the affirmative that it'll be funded through ARPA with a increase of hours from part-time to full-time. However, when the 2 years is up and the funding expires, then we have to revisit it, but we're not going to take anything away. I'm not looking, I can only speak for myself, I'm not looking to take away the original part-time position and how it was funded through professional services and other grants that you receive. So you won't lose the position. That's not the purpose here. We're just trying to understand, you know, how it's going to be dealt with at a later time. But I am in favor of this as presented, and I appreciate all of your time tonight and answering our questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Are there any reports of any special committees? I don't see any. Move on to agenda item number 14. I will entertain a motion to enter executive session to discuss item 14A, consideration of settlement of collective bargaining agreement between the City of Milford, City Hall Employees Association, AFSCME, Council 4, Local 1303-452, July 1st, 2019, through June 30th, 2024. Joining us in executive session for item 14A will be the City Attorney, John Burcham. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're in executive session. We're out of executive session. Alderman Harla. No.
Conclude. Ready?
Yeah, you gotta sum up what we just got. Yep.
I'm not sure what to say. We're in executive session. Okay. Relative to item 14, executive session, we hear a motion.
So moved.
I'm sorry? Come out and then to vote on, are we voting on that item?
Yes, motion
Okay.
was made and seconded
Motion was
to
made
come out
and
of
seconded to
executive
vote on
session.
On the item 14 that we're in executive session for.
Motion was made and seconded to come out of executive session. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're out of executive session. We were out before, but that's all right. Go ahead, Alderman Harla.
Relative to item 14 on the agenda, executive session, to make a motion for the consideration of the settlement of collective bargaining unit agreement between the City of Milford City Hall Employees Association, Council 4, Local 1303-452, dated July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.